Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to yet another God of War video. Now with the recent storm of the history of God of War videos on the channel, thank you again for the support by the way, I figured it would only be right to continue that hype train by bringing you more content surrounding the Nordic pantheon. With Ragnarok sitting around the corner, I figured that it would only be right to talk about a character we are yet to see, but have heard so much of, Thor Odinson. The Thunderer is arguably the most iconic figure in all of Norse mythology, wielding the legendary Mjornir in hand and bringing nothing but honor and glory to the halls of Asgard. But whilst Thor has typically been portrayed as a hero in Norse mythology and pop culture, this interpretation of Thor in the God of War universe is the furthest thing from a heroic blonde-haired protector of Midgard. So in today's video, we will be exploring the stories surrounding Thor Odinson in the God of War universe. We will be talking about his birth, origins, and what has cemented his name into legend across all of the 9 realms. Whilst I typically do full-blown history of episodes on characters like this, Thor, for the most part, has only ever been referenced to by name in the 2018 installment, and we only really got a sneak preview of him at the end of said game. Of course, his design has changed since then, but the impact he has made on the world itself has been something to behold, as really he is set up now as the next big obstacle for Kratos and Atreus to go up against. So with that said, I wanted to get you all up to date with his origins and the stories of Thor before we finally see him in action in God of War Ragnarok. Now Thor is the child of the Allfather Odin and giantess Fjorgen. Yes, you heard that right, a Jotun. Whilst the Allfather bore a lot of animosity towards Jotuns, Fjorgen was the one and only exception to that rule, and she was held up in very high regard in his eyes, as she had gifted him his prized child, Thor. So, Thor being a son of Odin and a giantess, would bear incredible power and abilities that would make him unique even amongst the Aesir pantheon, being able to conjure storms and lightning at his fingertips. Thor's name would slowly become legend as he grew throughout the years, fully embracing his Aesir origins and their warrior spirit to fight as hard as they would drink. But this is where things get very interesting with Thor. You see, whilst he is half Jotun, he has completely no interest in either his mother or his heritage. Thor is the physical embodiment of Odin's hatred and spite towards the Jotuns, as he would routinely go out of his way to murder them whenever the chance presented itself. Although it hasn't been well documented in the God of War universe, it has been hinted that at some point Thor grew sick of Fjorgen and murdered her in secrecy behind Odin's back, so the Allfather would not know of how she had perished, as she would just disappear. I hope this gives you a rough idea and perspective of just how twisted and deep Thor's hatred of the Jotuns runs. No one is safe, not even his family members. And whilst on the topic of family, it is implied through the events of the game that shortly following this, Thor started a relationship with Sif, as the two would have children, that being Magni and Modi. As events come to pass, Odin begins to learn and unravel the events of Ragnarok, and how he's prophesied to die at the end of it. Consumed by paranoia and how these events would unfold, he ordered 2 dwarves, Brock and Sindri, to forge an incredible weapon of power for Thor, one that could channel his will, power, and violence through. So as you would expect, this is what leads to Mjolnir's creation. Now, one day when Thor had returned from battle, he found the stone giant Hrungnir dining in the halls of Asgard, as he had been invited by Odin. The rowdy and drunk giant unfortunately stoked the flames of Thor's hatred, and in one swift swing, Hrungnir was executed by the brute, who crushed his skull to pebbles. But not before the giant body could collapse atop of him. Had it not been for Magni's incredible strength, Thor may have not been strong enough to escape the huge body of Hrungnir. What follows after this point in time is a very important moment in Asgard's history, as a ceasefire would be made between the Aesir gods and Vanir gods. Before this point in time, the 2 tribes had been fighting against each other, with blood being spilt on both sides. After centuries of this going on, the 2 two tribes decide to come together, with Odin marrying Freya of Vanaheim. So an era of peace would be ushered in between the two sides, and this would spread all across the 9 realms. But it would not last very long at all, with Odin's grip on reality slowly breaking as he was now consumed by the madness of Ragnarok. He begins to resort to desperate measures for the apocalypse. This ranged from turning his children into soldiers, to learning Vanir magic from Freya, to even traveling to Jotunheim itself and attempting to steal their abilities to look into the future. Denied of this clairvoyance by the Jotuns, Odin would turn his wrath towards the giants. If he couldn't see his future, then no one else should have such power. Knowing that he was destined to die at the hands of the Jotuns, Odin would send out Thor to storm into Midgard and unleash his incredible power across the realms. His arrival sent ripples and crackles throughout the lands as they slowly stacked with the bodies of dead Jotuns. But there would be one that was strong enough to stand against him and halt his assault. Jormungandr, the World Serpent. Going blow for blow with the Odinson, the battle was a stalemate, and this would allow Tyr to assist in helping the remaining Jotuns escape the realm of Midgard. Although Thor wasn't able to kill every single frost giant, this was still seen as a victory in the eyes of Odin, or Eye of Odin. So with his opposition now gone, Odin would continue to look into Ragnarok and see if he was truly capable of halting such events. Now with this done, whilst the giants did escape Midgard, this didn't ward all of them off, as one by the name of Falmer would travel to Midgard in the hopes of finding his son, Hrungnir, but all the giant found instead was Thor Odinson waiting for him in the dead of night. As the giant attempted to escape, Thor would bring Mjornir down upon him and beat the colossal giant to death. Now, Thor's last recorded interaction with the Frost Giants was when his hammer had been stolen by Thrym. Yes, stolen, you heard that right. Unlike most people's familiarity with Mjolnir from the Marvel universe, the hammer does not bear the enchantment of whoever hoards this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. So it can be wielded by anyone, as long as they are strong enough to pick it up. But back on the topic of Thrym, the Jotun king bared interest in Thor's stepmother, Freya, and wished to marry her, so Thrym would steal Thor's hammer, and in exchange, want Freya's hand in marriage. Understandably, the circumstances of this situation caused quite the stir in Asgard, but what Odin saw here was an opportunity, so when they quote-unquote agreed to their demands, they would send Thor to Jotunheim under the magical guise of Freya. So once Thor had entered the realm, the Odinson reclaimed his hammer and unleashed a bloody massacre across the realm, slaughtering Thrym and all that dared stand in his way. Thor had descended into a blood-soaked berserker rage as he prepared to build a stronghold in the name of Odin. But before he could do so, Freya, disgusted of his descent into madness, would have him be teleported back to Asgard, and this tore a huge rift in the relationship between Thor and Freya. So from this point onwards, the two were extremely cold towards each other. On the Odin side of things, his descent into madness had pushed him so far that Freya in fact left him, but not before he could curse her to the realm of Midgard. With the goddess gone, Thor found a form of kinship and brotherhood in Baldur, as he was understandably rather sympathetic about how things had unfolded. Baldur himself had been robbed of smell, taste and touch, and because of his lack of awareness and humanity, he would start to descend into madness, something his fellow Aesir gods would acknowledge. But Thor would keep a close eye on him, keeping him in check if he was to step out of line. Now this is actually the last of Thor's stories that are documented in the God of War universe, but that's not to say that we are done. This is everything that has happened before the events of the 2018 game. Whilst not physically present or really the main big bad of the 2018 installment, Thor is name dropped a lot of times, and it really does give you an idea and scope of how big his influence has rippled throughout the realm of Midgard. His destruction even affects the terrain you play in, as it decorates the battlefield you are a part of. The first time Thor's presence is really kind of felt in game is after Magni's death at the hands of Kratos. When Magni's younger brother Modi returned returns back to Asgard, Thor is beyond livid about the death of one of his children, and takes out his frustration on Modi, believing he to be a coward for having left Magni to die. As before this, Modi has a long documented history of being jealous of Magni, so Thor would beat his son to a bloody pulp before casting him back to Midgard, where the arrogant Aesir god goads Atreus into killing him, something I don't believe he really expected. The first and also last time we actually see Thor is at the end of the story mode, where Atreus has a dream where the home is stormed by Thor, seeking blood and vengeance against the pair for the death of Baldur, Magni, and Modi. Of course, whilst this may have been a dream, we see a similar shot of these events unfold in the Ragnarok trailer. So these dreams do manifest and come to fruition as Fimbulwinter settles in and Ragnarok approaches. But for now, that has been everything that we currently know about Thor Odinson in the God of War universe. I hope this gets you all a little bit more prepped for the Thunderer and Ragnarok, as I am extremely excited for his big antagonistic role in this game. With that said, I want to let you know that I already have another God of War video planned, and it will be about the story behind the Leviathan axe. From doing this video and everyone being pretty familiar with Mjornir as a weapon, it made me start to wonder what led to the creation of the Leviathan axe, as I believe it symbolizes something very important in this series of games. But you will have to wait for that one, as the history of Ares is next on the list. Also, before we do wrap up here, quick reminder that if you enjoyed this video, I recently dropped 2 really big videos covering the history of Kratos and Baldur. So if you enjoyed this one, you will most certainly enjoy those too. But until then guys, that has been it for me. So if possible, before we wrap up here, let's try getting this video to about 500 likes. And please do subscribe and tick that bell, as it will keep you up to date with all of my content coming out, as there's plenty more God of War stuff coming your way. But until then, as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I will see you all next time.